A single dad was just a commercial pilot, until F-22 pilots heard one name on radio: Ghost Rider. He was a single father, a commercial airline pilot, and a man who carried a quiet pride in his everyday life. His name was David, and his world revolved around two things: flying planes and raising his 8-year-old daughter, Emily. David's mornings were always the busiest. He would wake up before dawn, long before the first rays of sunlight broke through the city skyline. He moved quietly through the small apartment he shared with Emily, careful not to wake her before it was time. The walls were decorated with bright, colorful drawings she had made: sunsets, airplanes, even a tiny version of David soaring in the sky. Each drawing told a story, each one a reminder that this little human depended on him in ways that no one else could understand. Breakfast was simple but important. While Emily ate her cereal, David would check the flight schedule for the day, mentally mapping the routes, altitudes, and weather patterns. Flying a commercial plane required focus and discipline, and even as a father, he had to prepare for the responsibility that would sit on his shoulders hundreds of miles above the earth. Yet, no matter how demanding his job was, he always made time for Emily. A hug, a smile, or even a small conversation about school or friends became the pillars of their morning routine. By the time they were ready to leave for school and the airport, the city streets were alive with early commuters, buses, and the occasional taxi honking in frustration. David walked Emily to her school bus stop, her little hand tucked safely in his larger one. "Have a good day, Emily," he said as she waved and climbed aboard the bus. He lingered a moment, watching her chatter with friends, and allowed himself a quiet sigh. It wasn't easy being a single dad. Some days felt heavier than others. But the sight of her happy, carefree smile made it all worth it. After the bus left, David would head to the airport. His colleagues greeted him warmly, a mix of familiarity and professional respect. He loved his work, the freedom of flying, and the responsibility of guiding hundreds of passengers safely to their destinations. He knew that to them, he was just another pilot. But to himself, and secretly to a few others who knew his story, he was something more. He carried an attention to detail that set him apart. He respected the mechanics, the flight crew, and the passengers in a way that made his work feel like more than just a job. It felt like a calling. David's routine was disciplined, almost ritualistic. He walked through the pre-flight checks with the precision of someone who had spent years perfecting the art of flying. Engines, fuel, navigation systems, every detail mattered. The cockpit was his world, a place where focus replaced worry and precision replaced doubt. Here he could escape the daily chaos of life for a few hours, embracing the sky in a way few people ever would. And yet, even as he soared thousands of feet above the ground, his thoughts often drifted to Emily. Was she doing okay? Did she finish her homework? Did she eat enough lunch? It was impossible to separate fatherhood from every other part of his life, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Despite the demands of his job, David found joy in small moments. Watching the sunrise from the cockpit, the city shrinking below him, reminded him why he had chosen this path. It was freedom, yes, but also a test of character. He had to remain calm when storms approached, make decisions when faced with unexpected challenges, and navigate the skies with unwavering confidence. Each successful flight reinforced the pride he felt, not just as a pilot, but as a man who carried both responsibility and purpose. His life wasn't without challenges. Being a single parent came with sacrifices that many didn't see. There were school plays he missed, parent-teacher conferences he couldn't attend, and birthdays that coincided with long-haul flights. Sometimes he would call Emily late at night from a hotel room, hearing her sleepy voice on the other end, just to reassure her that he loved her and that he would always come back. Those conversations were short, but they were lifelines for both of them. It was a delicate balancing act, between career ambition and fatherly love, between professional duty and personal life. Yet, even on the hardest days, David never let the world see his struggles. He smiled, joked with colleagues, and offered guidance to younger pilots who were just beginning their careers. He shared stories about flying through unexpected turbulence or landing in challenging conditions, always emphasizing the importance of staying calm and composed. Behind the friendly demeanor and professional expertise, however, there was a deep-seated determination. He wanted more than the ordinary life. Not for fame, not for recognition, but for the kind of life that would make Emily proud and secure. Evenings brought their own routine. After flights that often ended past sunset, he would return home, weary but determined to reconnect with Emily. Dinner together was a quiet affair. Sometimes they cooked together, laughing over simple mistakes or clumsy spills. Other nights they simply sat at the kitchen table, sharing stories from their day. He would ask about school, friends, and her dreams, and she would ask about the planes he had flown and the places he had seen. Through these moments, a strong bond grew, a bond that could not be broken by distance, schedules, or circumstance. David's weekends were often dedicated entirely to Emily. Parks, museums, or even simple walks in the neighborhood became opportunities for learning and connection. He would teach her about airplanes, showing her how engines worked, explaining the importance of navigation, and sometimes even letting her watch pre-flight preparations from the cockpit when it was safe. She adored these moments, seeing her father not just as a parent, but as a hero in his own right, a man who could fly to the clouds but always came back to hold her hand. Friends and family often marveled at his ability to manage it all. How could one man handle the pressures of a demanding career and the responsibilities of raising a child alone? David didn't have an answer, except that love had a way of giving strength where none seemed possible. He didn't seek praise or admiration. To him, success was measured in smaller, quieter ways. Seeing Emily smile, hearing her laugh, knowing she felt safe, and knowing that he was doing everything he could to provide stability and love in her life. But even in his ordinary routine, there were hints of something extraordinary waiting in the shadows. David's skill as a pilot was exceptional, even if he had never sought the spotlight. Colleagues would occasionally whisper about his calm under pressure, his intuition during challenging flights, and the way he seemed to anticipate problems before they arose. Yet he remained humble. Flying was not a performance, it was a responsibility. And though he had once dreamed of pushing his abilities to their limits, life's circumstances had kept him grounded in a different kind of challenge, the delicate art of being a devoted father. Despite the comfort of routine, there was an underlying restlessness. David loved flying, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had more to give, more to accomplish, and more heights to reach. He dreamed of flying faster, higher, and in ways that most commercial pilots could never experience. He imagined himself in advanced aircraft, pushing boundaries and testing limits. But reality had always returned him to Emily's needs, to the flights that carried hundreds of passengers rather than the exhilaration of advanced maneuvers. One evening, as he reviewed flight plans for the coming week, a thought struck him. What if his skills could be used in a different way? What if there was an opportunity he hadn't considered? He shook his head, dismissing it as fantasy. After all, he was a commercial pilot, a profession respected but ordinary in the grand scope of aviation. Military pilots, fighter jets, and high-stakes missions were worlds apart from his steady, predictable life. And yet the idea lingered, like a whisper carried on the wind, reminding him that life could change in unexpected ways. That night, after putting Emily to bed, David sat by the window of their apartment, looking out at the city lights stretching into the horizon. He felt a mix of pride and longing. Pride for the life he had built, for the love he nurtured, and for the responsibilities he carried. Longing for something more, something thrilling, something that would test every skill he had honed over years of flying. He didn't know it yet, but the world was about to notice him in a way he could never have imagined. A single name, a single call sign, would soon echo across the skies and change his life forever. For now, though, he was just David, a father, a pilot, a man navigating the ordinary challenges of life with extraordinary care. Every decision he made, every choice to stay grounded yet reach for the sky, was a step in a journey that had only just begun. Little did he know that the very skills that allowed him to balance life and work so perfectly would one day earn him a reputation that even the most elite fighter pilots would respect. And that one day, the world would hear a name that would become legendary: Ghost Rider. David had never imagined that a simple morning at the airport could change his life forever. The day started like any other. He checked his flight schedule, reviewed the weather reports, and greeted his colleagues with a practiced smile. Yet, as he sipped his coffee in the quiet corner of the pilot's lounge, an unexpected email blinked on his tablet, demanding his attention. At first, he assumed it was a routine notification, perhaps a change in flight assignments or a memo from the airline. But as he read further, his heart began to race. The email was from a military aviation program, a special civilian initiative that allowed highly skilled commercial pilots to assist in advanced flight operations. It was rare and prestigious, offered only to those who demonstrated exceptional skill, precision, and composure in the air. And they wanted him. They had noticed his record, his calm under pressure, and the way he handled complex flight scenarios with near-perfect execution. The invitation was clear. Come, test your abilities in the world of fighter jets. David blinked at the screen, unsure if this was real. His life had been focused on commercial aviation, his routines carefully balanced around Emily, his daughter. Military aviation had always been a distant dream, an abstract idea from childhood stories of aces and test pilots. He had never expected that dream to come knocking at his door. Part of him wanted to dismiss it, to continue life as it had been. But another part, a quiet, insistent part, urged him to consider it. Could he rise to this challenge? Could he prove himself beyond the familiar confines of commercial flight? The first obstacle, he realized, was Emily. Being a single father meant that every decision was measured against her well-being. Flights that took him away for days were already a challenge. Now this opportunity could take him even further into unknown territory, leaving her without her primary caretaker for longer stretches. He imagined her waking up to an empty apartment, preparing breakfast alone, and waiting for him to return. The thought made him hesitate. Fatherhood was his anchor, the reason he had remained grounded in the first place. Could he risk stepping into a world so different, so unpredictable, and still come back to her safely? After a long pause, David made the call. He explained the opportunity to Emily as best as he could. "It's like an adventure in the sky," he said, smiling softly. "But it means I'll be away for a little while. I'll come back as soon as I can." Emily listened intently, her eyes wide with curiosity. She didn't fully understand what an F-22 fighter jet was or why it mattered, but she understood her father and she understood adventure. "I think you should go," she said finally, her voice small but determined. "You're the best pilot I know, you have to try." Her words gave David courage. He made the necessary arrangements, coordinating with family, friends, and babysitters to ensure Emily would be safe and cared for while he was away. Then came the preparation. Unlike commercial flights, where procedures were structured and familiar, this new program demanded intense training, physical readiness, and mental agility. David found himself in a simulation room, wearing a headset, controlling a flight simulator unlike anything he had ever experienced. The instruments were more complex, the response times faster, and the stakes unimaginably high. The other pilots were skeptical. F-22 fighter pilots, the elite of military aviation, were known for their precision, courage, and years of rigorous training. They looked at David as a civilian interloper, someone who might be skilled, yes, but inexperienced in the extreme demands of fighter flight. During initial briefings, some exchanged glances, questioning how a commercial pilot could keep up with maneuvers that required split-second decisions under immense pressure. David felt their judgment, but he refused to be intimidated. He reminded himself that flying was in his blood, that instincts honed over years of commercial aviation could adapt to new challenges if he stayed focused and disciplined. Training was grueling. Simulations tested everything: aerial combat scenarios, evasive maneuvers, emergency protocols, and extreme weather conditions. Every move was monitored, every decision critiqued. At first, David stumbled. The sensitivity of the F-22 controls felt alien, and the high-speed simulations were disorienting. But slowly, instinct took over. Muscle memory, learned over years of managing commercial flights, allowed him to anticipate changes in speed and direction, to respond with precision even when the simulator threw unexpected obstacles in his path. By the second week, he had caught the attention of the instructors. They watched as he completed complex maneuvers flawlessly, a combination of focus, skill, and a calm demeanor that inspired confidence. Yet, David remained humble. He knew the real test was yet to come, the actual flight in the sky, not just the simulator. The day finally arrived. David stood on the tarmac, staring up at the sleek, formidable F-22 fighter jet. Its surface gleamed in the sunlight, a marvel of engineering designed for speed, agility, and unmatched precision. He ran his hand along the fuselage, feeling the cold metal beneath his fingers. The reality of the moment hit him. This was no longer a simulation. This was real. And he was about to enter a world few civilians ever dared to enter. The cockpit welcomed him like an old friend, yet it was alien in its complexity. David familiarized himself with every switch, dial, and display, noting the differences from the commercial planes he had flown for years. The instructor seated next to him offered a nod of reassurance. "Remember," he said, "trust your instincts, stay calm, and respect the aircraft. It will respond to you if you're precise." Once airborne, the world below transformed. Cities, forests, and rivers shrank into patterns of color and movement. The roar of the engine was exhilarating, unlike anything David had ever experienced. Speed, altitude, and maneuverability combined to create a sensation both thrilling and terrifying. He felt the G-forces tug at his body, the plane responding instantly to every command. And then instinct took over. His hands moved with practiced precision, eyes scanning instruments and horizon alike, balancing calculation and intuition. The other pilots observed him closely, exchanging astonished glances. Here was a civilian pilot, navigating the F-22 with a level of composure that defied their expectations. When the instructor referred to him over the radio, a single name emerged: Ghost Rider. It was a call sign that seemed to embody the skill, focus, and calm confidence David displayed in the sky. The name caught on quickly, spreading among the squadron like wildfire. Even the most seasoned pilots found themselves impressed and intrigued by the civilian who could match, and sometimes surpass, their maneuvers. As the flight continued, David faced a series of challenges: sudden turbulence, rapid altitude changes, and simulated combat scenarios designed to test his limits. Each time, he responded with clarity, calm, and instinctive precision. The other pilots began to rely on his input, recognizing that his civilian background brought a fresh perspective, unclouded by the routines and expectations of military training. David, for his part, remained focused, aware that every decision mattered, both to the success of the mission and to his own reputation. Yet, amidst the excitement and intensity, his thoughts often returned to Emily. He imagined her at home, wondering how her father was doing, hoping he was safe. The responsibility he felt for her anchored him, reminding him that courage was not about recklessness, but about precision, preparation, and care. Even as the F-22 responded to his commands like an extension of his own body, he was aware of the trust placed in him, not just by the instructors and pilots, but by the people who depended on him in life. By the end of the first week, David had proven himself. The instructors and pilots acknowledged his skill, curiosity, and courage. They were no longer skeptical, they were impressed. Ghost Rider had become more than a call sign. It was a symbol of capability, precision, and the unexpected excellence of a civilian pilot who refused to be underestimated. What had begun as a routine commercial flight career had transformed into an extraordinary opportunity, showcasing what determination, skill, and courage could achieve. Evenings were spent reviewing flight data, analyzing maneuvers, and reflecting on lessons learned. David wrote emails to Emily, describing his experiences in ways she could understand, sharing the wonder of flight while assuring her of his love. He called her whenever possible, recounting the day's adventures and asking about hers. Their bond remained strong even across distance, a reminder that no challenge in the sky could diminish the connection between father and daughter. The weeks passed quickly, and with each flight, David's confidence grew. He became known not just for skill, but for his composure under pressure, his instinctive understanding of the aircraft, and the respect he showed to every member of the team. F-22 pilots, once skeptical, now looked to him for insight, advice, and collaboration. They marveled at the way he balanced focus, precision, and calm, a combination that made him formidable in the air and admirable on the ground. By the end of the training period, David had achieved something remarkable. He had stepped beyond the familiar boundaries of commercial aviation, earned the respect of elite military pilots, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that inspired others. The call sign, Ghost Rider, echoed in communications, a testament to his extraordinary performance and a symbol of a man who had balanced ordinary life with extraordinary skill. Returning to the apartment, exhausted but exhilarated, David found Emily waiting, her eyes shining with curiosity and pride. He knelt to her level, hugging her tightly. "It was amazing," he said. "But it made me realize something even more important. I want to come back home to you." Emily smiled, understanding in her own childlike way the magnitude of what her father had accomplished. She didn't need details of fighter jets or maneuvers. She knew her dad was brave, skilled, and capable of anything. David realized then that the true adventure wasn't just in the sky. It was in balancing his responsibilities, embracing opportunities, and showing courage when it mattered most. He had tested his limits, proven his abilities, and discovered that the extraordinary could exist alongside the ordinary, that a single father could soar as high in life as he did in the skies. And somewhere above the clouds, in the roar of the F-22 and the quiet moments of reflection, David knew that this was just the beginning. The legend of Ghost Rider had taken flight, but his journey was far from over. There were more challenges ahead, more skies to conquer, and more lessons to learn. Yet no matter how high he flew or how fast the aircraft moved beneath him, one truth remained. He was a father first, a pilot second, and a man whose courage and skill had earned him a place among the best. David had grown accustomed to the roar of the F-22 engines and the breathtaking speed at which the aircraft sliced through the sky. But nothing could have fully prepared him for the moment he would face true high-pressure situations alongside the elite fighter pilots. He had trained in simulators, completed test flights, and learned to trust both his instincts and the aircraft. Yet real scenarios in the air had a way of testing the mind, body, and spirit all at once, and David was about to learn just how much he could handle. The morning began like many others. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink as David walked across the tarmac. The F-22 gleamed in the early light, sleek and powerful, a combination of engineering brilliance and raw speed. The other pilots were already suited up, ready for a training exercise that would test their reflexes, coordination, and decision-making under extreme conditions. For David, it was another opportunity to prove himself, but this time the stakes felt higher, the pressure more intense. The exercise began with a rapid ascent, engines roaring as the jets shot skyward. David focused on his instruments, monitoring speed, altitude, and trajectory. His hands moved smoothly over the controls, responding instinctively to every shift in the plane's behavior. Around him, the other pilots executed their maneuvers with precision, weaving through imaginary opponents and performing complex aerial tactics. It was a dance in the sky, one that demanded absolute attention and perfect timing. David was in the middle of it, fully immersed, yet mindful of every detail. Suddenly, a simulated emergency scenario was introduced. The instructor's voice crackled over the radio. "Engine malfunction at high altitude. Respond immediately." In that instant, the world changed. David felt the shift in the aircraft's performance and recognized the urgency. There was no time to think in slow motion. He had to act. Drawing on years of commercial flight experience, he assessed the situation, adjusted the controls, and stabilized the plane. The other pilots watched in surprise as David handled the scenario with remarkable composure, turning a potential disaster into a controlled maneuver that kept the aircraft steady and on course. The exercise continued, each new challenge more demanding than the last. Rapid altitude changes, simulated threats from other jets, and sudden weather anomalies tested the limits of human endurance and skill. David adapted quickly, relying on instinct and training to navigate the skies with precision. He felt the G-forces pressing against him, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he embraced the intensity, letting the adrenaline sharpen his senses. Every twist, turn, and dive became a testament to his focus and capability. By midday, it was clear to the instructors and the other pilots that David was no ordinary civilian. His calm under pressure, his precise maneuvers, and his ability to anticipate challenges were exceptional. Even the most experienced F-22 pilots began to see him not as an outsider, but as an equal. Whispers of admiration spread through the squadron. "He's remarkable," one pilot said over the radio. "Ghost Rider handles the impossible like it's routine." The call sign, initially given almost casually, had become a symbol of respect, a recognition of skill and courage that transcended rank and experience. During a brief pause on the tarmac, David reflected on how far he had come. Just weeks ago, he had been a commercial pilot, navigating large airliners on routine routes. Now, he was performing maneuvers that many military-trained pilots found challenging. The transition had not been easy. There had been moments of doubt, moments when he questioned whether he belonged in this world of elite aviation. But each challenge had reinforced his confidence, showing him that skill, preparation, and determination could overcome even the most daunting obstacles. The next exercise was even more intense, a simulated dogfight against multiple jets. David's heart raced as he engaged in the complex maneuvers required to outmaneuver opponents. The other pilots pushed him to his limits, attempting to outflank and challenge his every move. David responded with ingenuity and precision, using strategies learned from both military briefings and years of commercial flight experience. He climbed, dived, and banked sharply, maintaining awareness of altitude, speed, and position at all times. One particularly tense moment stood out. An instructor introduced a sudden simulated missile threat, requiring David to execute an evasive maneuver with split-second timing. His training kicked in. He adjusted the throttle, tilted the aircraft, and performed a coordinated role that allowed him to avoid the virtual threat completely. The other pilots stared in astonishment. Even the instructors were impressed by his quick thinking and composure under extreme pressure. "That was textbook," one remarked. "Most seasoned pilots struggle with that scenario. Ghost Rider handled it flawlessly." Throughout these exercises, David never lost sight of the balance between skill and responsibility. He was aware that his actions in the sky affected not just himself, but the entire squadron. Coordination, communication, and mutual trust were essential. He maintained constant contact with the other pilots, offering advice and guidance when appropriate, and quickly responding to their signals and maneuvers. His ability to integrate seamlessly into the team, despite being a civilian, earned him even greater respect. Outside the cockpit, David's life continued to revolve around Emily. Even amidst the intensity of military training, he made sure to call her daily, sharing stories of the skies in ways she could understand. He described the sensation of soaring above the clouds, the thrill of high-speed maneuvers, and the beauty of the sunset from thousands of feet above the earth. Emily listened, wide-eyed, fascinated by her father's adventures, and proud of the man she knew as both her protector and hero. These calls were more than just communication. They were reminders of why he pursued this path, why he pushed his limits, and why he remained grounded in his responsibilities as a father. As the days went on, David faced increasingly complex exercises. He was tasked with coordinating multiple aircraft during simulated combat operations, managing high-speed formations, and responding to emergency scenarios designed to test endurance, decision-making, and creativity. Each task pushed him further, requiring not just technical skill but mental resilience. He approached each challenge with focus, methodically assessing the situation, anticipating potential problems, and executing maneuvers with precision. During one particularly grueling exercise, a sudden simulated engine failure occurred at high altitude. David's heart raced as he assessed the situation. The other pilots executed their maneuvers around him, relying on his ability to stabilize the aircraft. With calm determination, he guided the F-22 into a controlled glide, navigating toward a simulated emergency landing zone. The exercise concluded successfully, earning nods of approval and applause from instructors and fellow pilots alike. It was a defining moment, showcasing not just skill, but courage and presence of mind under extreme stress. By the end of the training program, David had earned something far beyond recognition. He had earned the respect, admiration, and trust of elite fighter pilots. Ghost Rider had become more than a call sign. It was a symbol of capability, professionalism, and extraordinary performance. Instructors praised his adaptability, ingenuity, and calm demeanor. Fellow pilots acknowledged that he had surpassed expectations, demonstrating that a civilian could not only keep up with, but excel alongside military-trained aviators. Returning to the base after a long day of training, David allowed himself a quiet moment of reflection. Standing on the tarmac, looking at the setting sun reflecting off the F-22s, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The journey from commercial pilot to respected member of an elite squadron had been challenging, exhausting, and exhilarating. Yet he knew that every achievement was rooted in preparation, focus, and the unyielding support of Emily, who had encouraged him to embrace this opportunity from the beginning. Back at the apartment that evening, Emily ran into his arms, her laughter filling the room. "Daddy, did you fly super fast today?" she asked, eyes sparkling with curiosity. David smiled, hugging her tightly. "I did," he said. "And I thought about you the whole time." They spent the evening together, sharing stories, drawing pictures of planes, and laughing over small adventures. Despite the extraordinary events of the day, these moments reminded David that his greatest responsibility and joy was being a father. In the days that followed, David's reputation continued to grow. He became a trusted member of the squadron, often asked for advice, guidance, and assistance during complex maneuvers. Yet, he remained humble, understanding that skill was only part of the equation. Respect, teamwork, and dedication to responsibility were equally important. He was no longer just a pilot. He was a symbol of what could be achieved when preparation met opportunity and when courage was paired with humility. One afternoon, during a routine debriefing, an instructor approached him. "David," he said, "you've set a new standard for civilian pilots. Your performance is exceptional. The team trusts you implicitly, and they've even started to call you a legend in your own right." David nodded, grateful but grounded. He understood the weight of the words, yet he also knew that recognition meant little if it distracted from the work at hand or from his responsibility to Emily. As part 3 of his journey concluded, it was clear that David had transformed. He was no longer just a commercial pilot or a single father managing daily routines. He had earned a place among elite fighter pilots, demonstrating skill, courage, and composure that few could match. The legend of Ghost Rider had taken flight, carried not by ego or ambition, but by dedication, preparation, and the desire to do one's best in every situation. And while the skies were filled with speed, turbulence, and challenges, David's heart remained grounded. Every maneuver, every flight, and every accolade was measured against the love he had for Emily and the promise he had made to himself, to soar high, but always return home. He had learned that true greatness was not measured by the altitude of flight or the complexity of maneuvers, but by the courage to take on challenges, the discipline to master them, and the wisdom to remain humble and connected to what mattered most. In the quiet moments after each flight, as the F-22 sat silently on the tarmac and the sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, David allowed himself a deep breath. The journey was far from over, and there were still lessons to learn, challenges to face, and limits to push. Yet one thing was certain. The name Ghost Rider had become more than a call sign. It was a reminder that even ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things when courage, skill, and heart aligned. And somewhere high above the clouds, in the roar of engines and the endless stretch of blue sky, David knew that the adventure was only just beginning. David had returned home, but life was far from ordinary. After weeks of grueling training, high-speed maneuvers, and complex aerial exercises, he was now known among elite F-22 pilots as Ghost Rider. His reputation had spread not just within the squadron, but across the network of military and civilian aviation enthusiasts who followed elite flight programs. Despite this newfound recognition, David's heart remained grounded in one constant: his daughter, Emily. The first morning after returning home felt surreal. David walked into the apartment and was greeted by the familiar sight of drawings taped to the walls, the scent of breakfast still lingering in the kitchen, and the cheerful chatter of neighbors outside. Emily ran toward him, arms outstretched, a wide smile lighting up her face. "Daddy, you're back!" she exclaimed. David scooped her into his arms, spinning her around, feeling the warmth and joy of home that no flight, however thrilling, could replicate. That day, David realized that his life had shifted in ways he hadn't fully anticipated. While he had soared above the clouds, pushed the limits of skill, and earned respect from elite pilots, the real world, the ordinary, everyday life waited for him at the apartment in the laughter and routines of Emily. It was grounding, comforting, and a reminder that greatness could coexist with simplicity. As days passed, David began sharing stories of his experiences with Emily, simplifying the complexities of fighter jets into tales of bravery, precision, and teamwork. He described the feeling of climbing to high altitudes, the exhilaration of rapid maneuvers, and the challenges of coordinating with other pilots under extreme conditions. Emily listened intently, eyes wide, absorbing every detail. "Daddy, you're like a superhero," she said one evening, her voice filled with awe. David laughed softly, hugging her. "Maybe," he said, "but even superheroes have to come home." David's achievements soon attracted attention beyond the squadron. News of his performance reached local media outlets, aviation communities, and even national aviation programs. The story was simple yet compelling. A single father, a commercial pilot, had risen to perform alongside elite F-22 pilots, earning a call sign that symbolized courage, skill, and composure. The narrative captured imaginations, showing that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary feats when dedication, preparation, and determination aligned. Despite the growing recognition, David remained humble. He declined interviews that felt excessive or intrusive, choosing instead to focus on Emily and the life they shared. Fame, he realized, was fleeting. The true measure of success was not accolades or headlines, but the ability to inspire, to remain grounded, and to balance ambition with responsibility. He continued to fly commercial routes, teach young pilots in local aviation programs, and spend quality time with Emily. Each flight, whether in a commercial plane or in simulation training, was approached with focus, discipline, and care. Friends and colleagues often remarked on his transformation. "David, you've changed," a fellow pilot said one afternoon. "You fly with confidence, but there's something more. You inspire others without even trying." David nodded thoughtfully. He knew that true leadership was not about ego or recognition. It was about presence, guidance, and integrity. He had learned to lead not by commanding attention, but by demonstrating excellence, humility, and dedication. Emily became a part of this journey as well. She attended events where her father was recognized, meeting instructors, pilots, and aviation enthusiasts who celebrated his achievements. She watched with pride as people spoke of Ghost Rider, a man who had risen above challenges, navigated unfamiliar skies, and earned respect in a world that demanded perfection. Yet Emily also saw the man behind the call sign, a father who never missed a bedtime story, a parent who valued her happiness above all else. One evening, as the city lights twinkled outside the apartment window, David and Emily sat together reviewing a model airplane kit. It was a quiet activity, but it reminded David of why he had pursued this journey in the first place. Flying, skill, and recognition were important, but they were secondary to the joy of connection, the sense of purpose in nurturing, and the simple happiness of being together. Emily's questions, curiosity, and excitement grounded him, keeping him focused on what truly mattered. In the following weeks, David received invitations to speak at aviation programs, mentor young pilots, and participate in simulation workshops. Each opportunity allowed him to share knowledge, inspire others, and demonstrate that skill and perseverance could overcome obstacles. He emphasized not just technique, but discipline, preparation, and mental resilience. His experiences with F-22 pilots served as examples of courage, precision, and teamwork, qualities that extended beyond aviation into everyday life. Despite the increasing responsibilities and attention, David never lost sight of balance. He maintained a daily routine with Emily, ensuring that school, play, and family moments remained central. He introduced her to basic flight concepts, allowing her to understand the principles of aerodynamics, navigation, and safety in age-appropriate ways. Emily's fascination with airplanes grew, not merely from the thrill of speed, but from understanding the discipline, focus, and responsibility that came with flying. David also found ways to reconnect with colleagues from his commercial flights, sharing insights and learning from others. He encouraged teamwork, communication, and the exchange of ideas, blending lessons from elite fighter pilots with practical applications for commercial aviation. His approach inspired confidence, not just in his abilities, but in the potential of collaboration, mentorship, and continuous learning. During one particularly reflective moment, David realized that his journey had reshaped his identity. He was no longer just a pilot or a father. He was a symbol of resilience, dedication, and the ability to rise to challenges. Ghost Rider was more than a call sign. It was a reminder of the power of courage, skill, and humility. Yet despite this recognition, David remained grounded in his core values: love for Emily, dedication to safety, and the pursuit of excellence in every task he undertook. The experiences also gave him perspective on risk, responsibility, and decision-making. Flying fighter jets had required rapid choices under pressure, but fatherhood demanded equally careful decisions, often with long-term consequences. David understood that courage was not reckless; it was deliberate, informed, and measured. Whether in the air or on the ground, he approached challenges with thoughtfulness, preparation, and a focus on the well-being of those who depended on him. As the weeks turned into months, David's reputation continued to grow, but he balanced public recognition with private fulfillment. He spent weekends with Emily exploring parks, museums, and outdoor activities, blending adventure with education. He introduced her to the principles of aviation through model planes, flight simulations, and simple experiments, nurturing curiosity, critical thinking, and creativity. Their bond deepened, strengthened by shared experiences, mutual respect, and the knowledge that they could face challenges together. Evenings became moments of reflection and planning. David reviewed flight paths, training exercises, and professional goals, while also considering Emily's education, interests, and personal growth. He recognized that true success required attention to both professional achievements and personal relationships. In guiding Emily, he found purpose, fulfillment, and a sense of balance that complemented his aerial accomplishments. One day, an invitation arrived from a National Aviation Association, recognizing David's exceptional contributions to both military and civilian aviation. The letter praised his skill, composure, and ability to inspire others through action and mentorship. While David appreciated the acknowledgement, he remained focused on his primary responsibilities. He knew that recognition was meaningful, but it was not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal was impact, the ability to inspire, teach, and guide others while staying true to his values. Emily noticed the attention surrounding her father, but she remained grounded in her admiration and love for him. "Daddy, you're amazing," she said one afternoon, helping him assemble a model airplane. "But you're also the best dad in the world." David smiled, realizing that these words carried more weight than any accolades, headlines, or call signs. They were a reminder that his journey, no matter how extraordinary, was inseparable from the life he nurtured at home. The days continued with a balance of adventure, responsibility, and reflection. David flew commercial routes, trained with elite pilots when opportunities arose, and mentored aspiring aviators. Each experience reinforced lessons in courage, preparation, and resilience. Yet every flight ended with a return to Emily. Every challenge was measured against the impact on her life, and every accomplishment was shared with her through stories, laughter, and simple joy. David also took time to reflect on the broader lessons of his journey. He realized that greatness was not defined solely by skill or recognition, but by the ability to inspire others, navigate challenges with integrity, and remain grounded in what truly mattered. The legend of Ghost Rider was significant, but the everyday acts of love, mentorship, and dedication were equally important. Together, they formed the foundation of a life that was both extraordinary and meaningful. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, David and Emily watched from their apartment window. The sky was painted with shades of orange, pink, and purple, a reminder of the vast world beyond their immediate surroundings. David turned to Emily, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset, and said, "You know, the sky is full of possibilities. But the most important thing is what we do here on the ground together." Emily smiled, understanding in her own childlike way that adventure, courage, and greatness were intertwined with love, responsibility, and connection. As part 4 of David's story drew to a close, it was clear that he had achieved a remarkable balance. He had soared through skies that few could imagine, earned the respect and admiration of elite fighter pilots, and become a symbol of skill, courage, and composure. Yet he had also remained grounded, nurturing the most important relationship in his life, the one with his daughter. Through every challenge, flight, and recognition, he demonstrated that extraordinary achievements were most meaningful when paired with responsibility, humility, and love. David's journey as Ghost Rider had reached new heights, but the lessons he carried were universal. Dedication, resilience, and courage could overcome the toughest challenges. Skill and preparation could earn respect in any arena, and above all, love, connection, and responsibility were the true measures of greatness. He had shown that even a single father, navigating the ordinary and extraordinary, could achieve remarkable things while staying true to what mattered most. And as he watched Emily drift to sleep that night, the quiet apartment filled with the soft hum of the city outside, David knew that his journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new skies to explore, and new lessons to learn. But no matter what lay ahead, he would face it with the same calm, skill, and heart that had defined every step of his journey, from commercial pilot to ghost writer, and from father to hero in the eyes of his daughter.